Two men walk into a business meeting. Both wear the same charcoal suit, tailored to perfection. Both carry the same product specifications in identical leather portfolios. Both quote the same price, down to the last decimal point. Yet when the clock strikes 5 and the conference room doors swing open, one man walks out empty-handed, his face a mask of professional composure hiding bewilderment. The other walks out with a signed check, a handshake that lingered just a moment longer than protocol demands, and a client who somehow feels grateful for the opportunity to pay him. What separated these two identical presentations? It wasn't luck. Luck is the excuse of men who refuse to see the mechanics of reality. It wasn't charisma, that superficial quality that can be faked with a smile and a firm grip. It was something far more fundamental, far more ancient, and infinitely more powerful. Wallace Wattles, in his surgical dissection of wealth mechanics, identified what he called the impression of increase, a signal that successful men broadcast constantly, whether they are conscious of it or not. This is not metaphor. This is not motivational fluff designed to make you feel better about your circumstances. This is a tangible, measurable frequency that radiates from certain individuals and triggers an almost biological response in everyone within their sphere of influence. Think of it as a silent transmission that bypasses the conscious mind entirely and speaks directly to the ancient reptilian brain that governs survival decisions. When you encounter someone broadcasting this signal, something primal awakens in you, a sense that proximity to this person means expansion, growth, and the fulfillment of your deepest desires for more life, more possibility, more of everything that matters. The successful men you envy, the ones who seem to attract opportunity like gravity pulls water downhill, are not operating with some mystical advantage denied to you. They have simply learned, whether through instinct or deliberate practice, to emit this specific frequency at all times. Every handshake becomes a transmission, every email carries the code. Every glance across a crowded room broadcasts the unmistakable message, "I am going somewhere, and everyone who attaches themselves to my trajectory will arrive at a better destination than they could reach alone." This is why clients feel compelled to say yes, even when logic suggests they should negotiate further. This is why investors wire money to certain entrepreneurs before the business plan is even finalized. The subconscious mind of the money holder detects the signal and responds with an urgency that feels like intuition, but is actually the recognition of a fundamental law of nature. In this video, we are going to isolate this frequency with scientific precision. We will dissect exactly what the impression of increase is at its core, stripping away the vague platitudes that have obscured this teaching for a century and revealing the actual mechanism that makes it work. You will learn why this signal matters more than your credentials, your experience, or even the quality of your product. More importantly, you will learn the exact method to flip the switch in your own consciousness so that you begin broadcasting this frequency automatically, without conscious effort, in every interaction. By the time you reach the end of this transmission, every handshake you offer will carry a different weight. Every email you send will land with a different impact. Every room you enter will shift its energy in subtle but measurable ways because you have become what Wattles called an advancing man, a human center of increase from which growth radiates outward like heat from a fire. The people who encounter you will not be able to articulate why they feel compelled to help you, to invest in you, to open doors that remained closed to others. But they will feel it nonetheless, and they will act on it, and the money will flow. This is not about becoming someone you are not. This is about activating something that has always been dormant within you, waiting for you to understand the law that governs its operation. Make no mistake, you are about to learn something that most men will never grasp, even as they watch wealth flow past them toward those who have mastered this invisible transmission. The question is not whether this law works. It works with the same reliability as gravity. The question is whether you have the courage to apply it without reservation, without the self-sabotage of doubt, and without the deadly sin of inconsistency that murders more fortunes than any market crash ever could. To understand why the impression of increase works with such devastating effectiveness, you must first grasp a truth so fundamental that it governs every action of every living thing on this planet, the desire for more life. This is not a philosophical abstraction or a poetic turn of phrase. This is biology. This is the prime directive encoded into every cell of every organism that has ever drawn breath on this earth. A plant in your window will twist and contort its stem, defying its own structural integrity, to reach towards sunlight because that light means more life, more growth, more expression of its essential nature. The bacteria in your gut, the neurons firing in your brain, the mitochondria churning out energy in trillions of cells at this very moment, all of them are executing the same fundamental program: expand, grow, increase, express more life. You are not separate from this imperative. You are its most sophisticated expression. Every decision you make, every desire you feel, every goal you set is ultimately a manifestation of this biological command to experience more life. When you say you want more money, what you actually want is the expanded possibilities that money represents. More travel, more comfort, more security, more experiences, more expression of your potential, more life in every dimension that matters to a conscious being. This desire is not greed. This desire is not materialism. This desire is the universe expressing its fundamental nature through you. The cosmos itself is in a constant state of expansion. Physicists have measured this, charted it, confirmed it beyond any reasonable doubt. You are not exempt from this cosmic pattern. You are not designed to contract, to diminish, to accept less. Every fiber of your being rebels against stagnation because stagnation is death wearing a socially acceptable mask. When you feel restless in a job that no longer challenges you, that is not ingratitude. That is the life force within you demanding that you honor its essential nature by seeking expansion. Understanding this changes everything because it reveals why people respond to the impression of increase with such powerful, almost involuntary compliance. When you encounter someone who is genuinely advancing, who is expanding, who is expressing more life with each passing day, you are encountering someone who is aligned with the fundamental force that animates all of reality. Your subconscious mind recognizes this alignment instantly, the way a compass needle recognizes magnetic north. It says to you, in a language older than words, this person is moving in the direction that all life must move. Attach yourself to their trajectory. Let their expansion pull you forward into your own greater expression. This is why people will give money to an advancing person, even when the logical case for the investment is weak. This is why doors open, why opportunities materialize, why synchronicities multiply around someone who has truly grasped and embodied the law of increase. They are not manipulating the universe. They are not using some secret technique that bends reality to their will. They are simply removing the resistance that prevents the natural flow of increase from moving through them and outward to everyone they touch. The universe wants to expand. It needs vehicles for that expansion. When you become such a vehicle, every force in existence conspires to ensure your success because your success serves the fundamental purpose of reality itself. Consider the wealthy person you know who seems to generate money effortlessly while others struggle despite working harder. The difference is not intelligence. It is not education. It is not even opportunity, though opportunity certainly flows more freely to those who understand this law. The difference is that the wealthy person has internalized, at a cellular level, the absolute certainty that they are an instrument of increase. They expect to grow. They expect to expand. They expect every venture to yield more than was invested, because that is the nature of life itself. To take resources and multiply them, to take potential and actualize it, to take seeds and grow forests. When you meet such a person, even if the meeting lasts only 30 seconds, something in you recognizes this alignment with the fundamental force of reality. You may not be able to articulate it. You may rationalize your response with talk of confidence or presence or leadership qualities. But what you are actually responding to is the signal that this person broadcasts constantly. I am advancing, and everyone connected to my advance will also advance. This is not arrogance. Arrogance is the desperate performance of someone trying to convince themselves and others of a superiority they do not feel. The impression of increase is something entirely different. It is the quiet, unshakable certainty of someone who has aligned themselves with a law as reliable as gravity. The plant does not apologize for growing toward the light. The river does not hesitate to flow toward the ocean. The child does not question the impulse to learn, to explore, to master new skills with each passing month. These are all expressions of the same fundamental drive, the biological imperative toward more life. You were born with this same imperative, but somewhere along the way, you were taught to suppress it, to disguise it, to feel guilty for wanting more. You were taught that ambition is greed, that expansion is selfishness, that the desire for increase is somehow immoral or unspiritual. These teachings are poison. They are contradictions of the fundamental law of existence, and every moment you spend believing them is a moment you spend in rebellion against your own nature. Wattles understood this with a clarity that most philosophers never approach. He saw that the desire for riches is actually the desire for a fuller, more abundant, more expansive experience of life. The man who wants money is not defective or shallow. He is responding appropriately to the life force within him that demands greater expression. The tragedy is not in wanting more, the tragedy is in wanting more while simultaneously believing that wanting more is wrong. This internal contradiction creates a signal of confusion, of ambivalence, of apologetic hesitation that repels the very wealth you claim to desire. People detect this mixed signal and they respond with uncertainty, with hesitation, with the vague sense that something is off even if they cannot name what that something is. But when you resolve this internal conflict, when you embrace the desire for increase as the natural and righteous expression of the life force within you, everything changes. Your signal becomes clear. Your transmission becomes pure. Every interaction carries the unmistakable message that you are advancing, and that everyone who joins your advance will benefit from the expansion you generate. This is not manipulation. This is alignment with reality. This is the difference between swimming against the current and letting the river carry you toward the ocean that was always your destined endpoint. The question is not whether you should desire increase. You already do at every level of your being. The question is whether you will stop apologizing for it and start broadcasting it with the full force of your conviction. The person who understands this law looks at money differently than most people do. They do not see money as a scarce resource to be hoarded, protected, and anxiously guarded against loss. They see money as a natural consequence of providing increase to others. They understand that every dollar they possess came to them because someone believed, consciously or unconsciously, that giving them that dollar would result in an experience of greater life. The transaction was not exploitation, it was exchange. Value was offered, increase was delivered, and money flowed as naturally as water flows downhill. When you grasp this, the entire game changes because you stop begging for money and start offering increase, knowing with absolute certainty that the money will follow as surely as thunder follows lightning. This is why the impression of increase is not a trick or a technique to be applied superficially. It is a fundamental reorientation of your relationship with the force that animates all of existence. It is the recognition that you are not a separate, isolated entity trying to extract resources from an indifferent or hostile universe. You are an expression of the universe itself, and your expansion is the universe expanding through you. When you operate from this understanding, people do not resist your success. They celebrate it because at some level they recognize that your increase creates the conditions for their increase. You become a rising tide that lifts all boats, and the boats are desperate to stay close to the source of the rising water. Consider how this plays out in the simplest interactions. When you buy a newspaper from a street vendor, do you transmit the energy of reluctant obligation, of parting with money you can barely afford, of decrease and limitation? Or do you transmit the energy of abundant exchange, of increasing the vendor's life while simultaneously affirming your own advancing nature? The conscious mind of the vendor may not register the difference, but the subconscious always does. Over time, the people who interact with you begin to associate you with the feeling of expansion, and they will unconsciously seek out opportunities to interact with you again, because human beings, like all living things, Move toward that which promises more life. This is the biological foundation beneath Wattles' teaching. This is why the impression of increase works not sometimes but always, not with some people, but with everyone, because it speaks to the most fundamental programming that exists in organic life. You cannot opt out of the desire for more life, any more than you can opt out of the need for oxygen. The only question is whether you will become a source of that increase for others, thereby ensuring that the universe routes increase back to you with mathematical precision, or whether you will continue signaling decrease and wondering why wealth perpetually eludes your grasp. The choice has always been yours. The law does not care about your decision. It simply executes with perfect reliability, rewarding those who align with it and bypassing those who do not. Now we arrive at the mechanical connection that most people miss entirely, the link that transforms this from interesting philosophy into actionable power. Money is simply condensed life force expressed in fungible form. When someone gives you money, what they are actually giving you is stored potential, the potential to expand your life, to access more experiences, to command more resources, to express more of your essential nature in the world. This is why people are so careful with their money, so reluctant to part with it unless they perceive a strong return. They are not just protecting paper or digital numbers in an account, they are protecting their stored potential for more life. Understanding this transforms your entire approach to wealth because it reveals the true nature of every financial transaction. When someone hands you money, they are making a bet. They are wagering that giving you this stored potential will result in them experiencing more life than they would have experienced by keeping it. Sometimes this exchange is obvious. You buy food, which sustains your life, so the transaction is direct and immediate. But in business, in investment, in any sophisticated exchange of wealth, the calculation is more subtle. The investor who gives you capital is betting that your success will enhance their life, either through direct return on investment or through the less tangible but equally real satisfaction of being part of something that advances, that grows, that expands. This is why people only give money to those who signal increase. If you signal stagnation, if you broadcast the energy of someone who is stuck, who is struggling, who is barely maintaining their current position, you become invisible to money, not because people are cruel or shallow, but because they are obeying the same biological imperative that governs all life. They are moving toward that which promises more life and away from that which promises decay. You can have the best business plan ever written, the most innovative product ever conceived, but if you transmit the signal of stagnation, you will find yourself mysteriously unable to close deals, unable to attract investment, unable to convert prospects into clients. The signal you broadcast is detected through 1,000 micro-expressions that your conscious mind does not control and the observer's conscious mind does not register. The slight hesitation before you state your price. The almost imperceptible tension in your shoulders when you discuss future projections. The fractional delay in your response when someone challenges your assumptions. These tiny signals accumulate into a coherent message that the observer's subconscious mind reads with perfect accuracy. This person is not certain. This person is not advancing. This person is managing decline while pretending to pursue growth. And in that instant, the door closes. The wallet stays shut. The opportunity evaporates like morning mist under harsh sunlight. But when you genuinely embody the impression of increase, when you have resolved every internal conflict about your right to expand and your certainty about your trajectory, the opposite occurs. The same micro-expressions now tell a different story. Your price is stated without apology or hesitation because you know with absolute certainty that the value you provide exceeds the cost. Your projections are delivered with the calm confidence of someone who has already seen the future in perfect clarity. Your responses to challenges come without defensive tension because challenges are simply opportunities to demonstrate the inevitability of your advance. The observer's subconscious reads all of this and delivers a different verdict. This person is a certainty. This person is advancing. Attaching to this person's trajectory is the optimal strategy for my own increase. This explains phenomena that conventional business advice cannot touch. Why does the less experienced entrepreneur sometimes attract more capital than the seasoned veteran. Because experience can breed caution, and caution broadcasts the signal of decrease. The veteran has seen too many failures, accumulated too many scars, internalized too many reasons why things might not work. The novice, operating in blissful ignorance of obstacles, transmits pure increase because they have not yet been trained to signal doubt. This is not to celebrate ignorance, it is to highlight the deadly poison of allowing past failures to contaminate your present signal. The money trap that destroys most people's wealth-building capacity is precisely this contamination. They attempt to pursue wealth while simultaneously holding on to the story that wealth is difficult, that money is scarce, that success requires superhuman effort, and even then might not materialize. They want the outcome, but reject the process. They desire increase while broadcasting decrease. And then they wonder with genuine bewilderment why money flows to others while avoiding them like water avoiding oil. The universe is not punishing them. The universe is simply responding to the signal they transmit with the same mechanical precision that a radio responds to the frequency you select. Consider the person in your life who always seems to need money, who is perpetually in crisis, whose financial problems never quite resolve despite endless drama and urgent appeals for help. What signal do they broadcast? They broadcast need, which is another word for decrease. They transmit the energy of a black hole that consumes resources without generating increase. And while your conscious mind might feel guilty for not helping more, while you might consciously believe they deserve better circumstances, your subconscious mind correctly identifies that giving money to this person will result in net decrease for you with no corresponding increase for them, because they will simply use the money to postpone the inevitable rather than fundamentally changing their trajectory. Now contrast this with the person who approaches you with an opportunity. They need capital, yes, but they transmit something entirely different. They broadcast absolute certainty about where they are going. They convey, through 1,000 microsignals, that they are advancing with or without your participation, but that your participation will accelerate the advance and entitle you to share in the expansion they generate. Your conscious mind hears the pitch, but your subconscious mind reads the signal. And if the signal is authentic, if it comes from genuine alignment with the law of increase rather than skilled performance, you find yourself wanting to invest, even if the logical case is not overwhelming. You want to be part of that expansion because every cell in your body recognizes that expansion is the purpose of life itself. This is why Wattles insists that the impression of increase is not optional for anyone who desires wealth. It is not one technique among many. It is not a nice-to-have quality that might give you a slight edge. It is the foundational requirement that determines whether money flows to you or past you. You can master every other aspect of business, the strategy, the execution, the marketing, the operations. But if you fail to transmit increase, you will find yourself working harder than your competitors for a fraction of their results. They are not luckier than you. They are not more talented than you. They have simply learned to transmit the one signal that makes all money holders respond with biological urgency, the signal that proximity to you means expansion, growth, and more life. The liberation in understanding this is that you do not need to become someone you are not. You do not need to develop a fake personality or master complicated social techniques. You need only to recognize and embrace what is already true, that you are designed for increase, that increase is your natural state, that every resistance to increase in your consciousness is a learned behavior that contradicts your essential nature. When you strip away these learned limitations, when you remove the internal blocks that prevent you from claiming your right to advance, the signal emerges naturally and automatically. You do not have to remember to broadcast it. You cannot help but broadcast it because it is the authentic expression of who you are when all the false conditioning is dissolved. But here is where most people fail. They try to fake the signal. They attempt to perform confidence, to simulate certainty, to act as if they are advancing while internally doubting every step. This performance might fool some observers some of the time, but it cannot sustain wealth building because the internal contradiction creates signal noise that the subconscious always detects. True wealth requires true alignment. The impression of increase must be authentic, must flow from genuine resolution of doubt, must come from a consciousness that has fully embraced its right and responsibility to expand. Anything less is performance art that will exhaust you while producing minimal results. This is why the journey to wealth is ultimately a journey of consciousness. You must first become the kind of person who genuinely believes at every level of being that increase is your destiny, your right, and your obligation to the life force that animates you. When this belief is complete, when it has dissolved every contradiction, every doubt, every internalized story of limitation, the impression of increase broadcasts automatically. Money holders detect it instantly. Opportunities materialize with strange synchronicity. Doors open that you did not even know existed, and the money flows not because you have manipulated anyone, but because you have aligned yourself with the fundamental law that governs all wealth. Increase attracts increase, and the universe will route resources to those vehicles, capable of multiplying those resources in service of greater expansion. The question you must ask yourself with brutal honesty is this: do you signal increase or decrease? When people interact with you, do they walk away feeling expanded or diminished? When you enter a room, does the energy rise or contract? When you send an email, does the recipient feel excitement about possibilities or dread about obligations? If the answer to these questions is anything other than increase, expansion, and excitement, you now know why money has been elusive. You have been broadcasting the wrong frequency. But unlike most limitations in life, this one can be corrected immediately, completely, and permanently by a simple decision: to align yourself with the law of increase and never again transmit the signal of decrease, regardless of circumstances, regardless of obstacles, regardless of how things appear in the moment. Make that decision, and everything changes. Refuse that decision, and nothing changes. The choice, as always, is yours. We have studied the thinking stuff in previous transmissions, that formless, intelligent substance that permeates all space and responds to thought with creative power. We have traced the mechanism by which your sustained mental images impress themselves upon this substance and begin to take form in your physical reality. This is not mysticism. This is mechanics. Every thought you hold with clarity and faith acts upon the thinking stuff, the way a seed acts upon soil, initiating a process of manifestation that proceeds according to law, not luck. But here is where most students of Wattles stop. Here is where they make the fatal error that transforms powerful knowledge into impotent fantasy. They believe that thought alone is sufficient. Wattles is explicit on this point, though many readers gloss over his warning in their eagerness to embrace the easier path of pure mental work. He states clearly that while thought creates the pattern, while mental images impress themselves upon the formless substance and set in motion the forces that will bring your desires into manifestation, there is a bridge that must be crossed between the invisible world of thought and the visible world of results. That bridge is personal action, but not just any action. It must be action that is executed in what he calls the certain way, and that certain way requires the transmission of a specific signal that precedes and accompanies all your physical efforts. This is the intersection where most people's fortunes die. They think rich thoughts. They visualize abundant outcomes. They impress their desires upon the thinking stuff with genuine faith and clarity. And then they wait. They wait for the universe to deliver. They wait for opportunities to appear. They wait for circumstances to shift in their favor. And while they wait, others who understand the complete mechanism surge past them, accumulating wealth with a speed that seems miraculous to those who only understand half the formula. The difference is not in the quality of thought. It is in the recognition that thought must be expressed through action, and action must be saturated with the impression of increase if it is to trigger the full power of the law. Think of it this way. Your thoughts create a template in the invisible realm. This template is real. It exists. It has already set in motion forces that will eventually manifest your desire. But those forces must have a point of entry into your physical experience, and that point of entry is your personal action in the physical world. When you act, you create contact points between the invisible pattern and the visible reality. You create opportunities for the thinking stuff to deliver to you the very thing you have been impressing upon it. But here is the critical distinction. If your action is performed while transmitting the signal of doubt, fear, or stagnation, you create resistance that slows or even blocks the manifestation process. If your action is performed while transmitting the impression of increase, you create a clear channel through which the forces you have set in motion can deliver with maximum speed and minimum obstruction. This is why Wattles emphasizes that you must do what can be done each day with efficiency and put into each action the whole power of your being. This is not just practical advice about work ethic, it is instruction about signal transmission. When you perform any action, no matter how small, with the full presence of your consciousness and the complete conviction that this action is part of your advancing trajectory, you transmit increase through that action. The person who receives your work, the customer who receives your product, the colleague who receives your email, all of them detect the signal embedded in your action and they respond accordingly. Consider two writers who both craft an email to a potential client. The words might be nearly identical, the offer might be exactly the same. But the first writer composes the email while harboring doubts about whether they are good enough, whether the client will respond, whether they deserve to charge their stated rate. These doubts are not locked in their mind. They leak into the energy of the email itself through 100 subtle choices of phrasing, through the tentative way options are presented, through the apologetic tone that creeps into even carefully edited copy. The recipient reads the email and feels the doubt, though they could never articulate it, and they respond with hesitation or not at all. The second writer composes the same email from a completely different internal state. They know with absolute certainty that they are advancing, that their work generates increase for their clients, that the fee they charge is a bargain compared to the value they deliver. This certainty saturates every sentence of their email. The offer is presented not as a request, but as an invitation to participate in something that is already succeeding. The call to action is not a plea, but a natural next step in an inevitable process. The recipient reads this email and feels something entirely different. They feel the pull of increase, the attraction of advancement, and they respond with enthusiasm because every biological instinct they possess recognizes that saying yes to this person means more life. This is the bridge between thinking rich and getting paid. This is the mechanism that Wattles reveals, but that most readers fail to implement because they do not grasp its centrality to the entire system. You can do all the mental work perfectly. You can visualize with laser clarity. You can impress your desires upon the thinking stuff with unwavering faith. But if you then take action in the physical world while broadcasting decrease, while signaling doubt, while transmitting the energy of someone who is struggling rather than advancing, you create a bottleneck that chokes off the flow of wealth that was already on its way to you. The certain way that Wattles describes is not primarily about what you do, it is about the signal you transmit while you do it. Two men can perform identical actions with completely different results because one transmits increase and the other transmits decrease. The universe does not care about the action itself. The universe responds to the consciousness behind the action, the quality of being that saturates the action, the signal that accompanies the action into the field of other people's awareness. This is why technique is never enough. This is why you can study all the tactics, master all the strategies, execute all the steps, and still fail to generate wealth if you have not mastered the fundamental transmission of increase. Wattles understood that success is not sequential, it is simultaneous. You do not first think rich thoughts and then later take rich actions and finally transmit the impression of increase. All three must occur together, must be integrated into a single unified expression of advancing consciousness. Your thoughts create the pattern. Your actions create the contact points. Your signal creates the receptivity in others that allows the manifestation to complete. Remove any one of these three elements, and the system fails. This is why partial application of Wattles' teaching produces partial results at best and often produces no results at all. The law requires complete alignment, thought, action, and signal all moving in the same direction, all expressing the same fundamental truth. I am advancing, and everyone connected to my advance will also advance. This integration is what Wattles means when he speaks of becoming a creative center. You are not just thinking about wealth, or working toward wealth, or hoping for wealth. You are becoming a point in space-time from which increase radiates outward in all directions. Your thoughts are thoughts of increase. Your actions are actions of increase. Your very presence transmits increase to everyone who encounters you, whether that encounter is face-to-face or through the medium of your work, your writing, your products, your services. You become a living embodiment of the law of increase, and the universe has no choice but to route wealth to you because you have become the kind of vehicle through which the universal impulse toward expansion can express itself most efficiently. Most people never achieve this integration because they compartmentalize. They think rich thoughts during their morning visualization practice and then spend the rest of the day in doubt. They take ambitious actions in their business and then transmit apologetic energy in their personal interactions. They talk about abundance in coaching sessions and then complain about money with friends. This fragmentation creates signal noise that confuses the thinking stuff and repels the very people who could facilitate your advance. The law requires consistency. It requires that you become one thing, not a collection of contradictory signals fighting for dominance in your consciousness. This is not about perfection, it is about direction. You will have moments of doubt. You will have days when the signal weakens. But the question is whether your fundamental orientation is toward increase or decrease, whether your dominant transmission is advancement or stagnation. If you catch yourself broadcasting decrease, you must immediately correct it, not through self-judgment, but through simple redirection of your attention back to the truth of your advancing nature. This correction becomes easier with practice until eventually the impression of increase is not something you do, but something you are, as natural and automatic as breathing. The practical implication is profound. Every single action you take in the physical world is an opportunity to transmit increase or decrease. There are no neutral actions. Every email, every meeting, every transaction, every casual conversation is either strengthening your signal of advancement or contaminating it with decrease. When you understand this, you begin to approach every moment with a different level of consciousness. You do not just perform tasks, you saturate tasks with the energy of increase. You do not just complete transactions, you infuse transactions with the transmission that you are advancing, and that everyone who participates in your advance will benefit from the expansion you generate. This is the strategic necessity that Wattles reveals. The impression of increase is not a social nicety or a psychological trick. It is the bridge between the invisible world where thought creates and the visible world where results manifest. Without this bridge, your richest thoughts remain locked in potentiality, never crossing over into actuality. With this bridge in place and functioning properly, the speed of manifestation accelerates dramatically because you have removed the primary obstacle that prevents most people's desires from materializing: the internal contradiction between their thoughts of wealth and their actions of doubt. The thinking stuff responds to thought, yes, but it delivers through people, through circumstances, through opportunities that require your recognition and your action. If you transmit decrease, people do not want to be the channel through which your wealth arrives. Opportunities present themselves, but you do not recognize them because you are vibrating at the wrong frequency. Circumstances align, but you are too clouded by doubt to take advantage of them. The delivery system fails not because the thinking stuff has stopped working, but because you have blocked the channels through which it must work. The impression of increase is the signal that opens those channels, that makes people want to help you, that makes opportunities visible, that makes circumstances align in your favor with the kind of synchronicity that seems magical but is actually mechanical. Understand this. Wattles is giving you a complete system, not a collection of disconnected techniques. The thought work sets the pattern. The action work creates the contact points. The signal work opens the channels. All three must function together, must be integrated into a single expression of advancing consciousness, must become as natural to you as walking. When this integration is complete, when you have become a unified field of increase that operates automatically without conscious effort, You will look back at your current struggles with wealth and recognize them for what they were: the natural consequence of a fragmented consciousness trying to manifest abundance while simultaneously broadcasting decrease. The system works. It has always worked. The question is whether you will implement it completely or continue to wonder why partial implementation produces no results. Now we arrive at the archetype that Wattles places at the center of his entire teaching, the ideal toward which every student of the science of getting rich must orient themselves: the advancing man. This is not a metaphor. This is not inspirational language designed to make you feel motivated for a few hours before returning to your default patterns. This is a precise description of a type of consciousness that operates in the world with a completely different relationship to wealth, to opportunity, to people, to life itself. The advancing man is not someone who is trying to get rich. He is someone who cannot help but get rich because his entire being transmits the one signal that makes wealth flow toward him as inevitably as iron filings move toward a magnet. What does it mean to be an advancing man? It begins with a fundamental orientation of consciousness toward expansion rather than maintenance, toward growth rather than preservation, toward increase rather than mere survival. Most people are not advancing men. Most people are maintaining men at best, declining men in truth. They wake up each morning with the question: how do I preserve what I have? How do I prevent loss? How do I maintain my current position? This is the consciousness of fear, and fear broadcasts decrease more powerfully than any other emotion because it signals to the world that you are in retreat, that you are defending rather than conquering, that you are trying to hold on rather than expanding forward. The advancing man wakes with an entirely different question: what can I build today? How can I expand today? What new territory can I claim today? This is not recklessness. This is not impulsive risk-taking disconnected from strategy. This is the consciousness of someone who has internalized the law of increase so completely that expansion is their default setting, their automatic response to any situation, their fundamental approach to every challenge. When the advancing man encounters an obstacle, he does not see a reason to contract. He sees an opportunity to demonstrate his advancing nature by finding the solution that transforms the obstacle into a stepping stone toward greater expansion. Wattles states explicitly that the advancing man is not aggressive in the competitive sense. He is not trying to dominate others, to take from others, to win at others' expense. This distinction is crucial because many people confuse advancement with aggression, growth with conquest, expansion with exploitation. The advancing man is operating from a completely different paradigm. He understands that he exists in a creative universe, not a competitive universe. There is no scarcity that requires him to take from others. There is only the formless substance, infinite in its supply, ready to manifest whatever he impresses upon it with sufficient clarity and faith. His advancement does not diminish anyone else. It creates the conditions for others to advance as well. This is what Wattles means when he describes the advancing man as a creative center from which increase is given off to all. The word given is essential. The advancing man is not extracting value from the world. He is adding value to the world. He is not taking from others. He is increasing others through every interaction. This is why people want to be around the advancing man, want to do business with him, want to invest in his ventures, want to participate in his projects. They correctly perceive, though they may not be able to articulate it, that proximity to this person means their own lives will expand, their own possibilities will increase, their own experience of life will become richer and fuller. Consider the practical application of this. When you walk into a store to buy something, are you an advancing man or a maintaining man? The maintaining man approaches the transaction with a consciousness of decrease. He is parting with money, which feels like loss. He scrutinizes every detail, not from a place of wise discernment, but from a place of fear that he is being taken advantage of. He transmits the energy of someone who is protecting his resources against a hostile world. The store clerk feels this energy and responds with minimal engagement because every biological instinct says that interaction with this person leads to decrease, not increase. The advancing man approaches the same transaction from a completely different consciousness. He knows he is exchanging money for value, and he transmits gratitude for the exchange. He knows that his money is flowing into the economy, creating circulation that will eventually return to him multiplied. More importantly, he transmits to the clerk that this transaction is increasing the clerk's life as well as his own. The clerk is receiving money, yes, but also receiving the energetic transmission that he is participating in something larger than a simple exchange of goods for currency. The clerk may not consciously understand why this customer feels different, but he responds with more attention, more care, more willingness to go beyond the minimum requirement. This difference compounds across thousands of interactions. The maintaining man creates friction everywhere he goes. People subconsciously resist him because he transmits decrease. Deals are harder to close. Negotiations are more adversarial. Opportunities are fewer because people do not think of him when possibilities arise. He works harder than the advancing man and achieves less because he is swimming against the current of the fundamental force that governs all human interaction, the biological impulse toward more life. The advancing man, by contrast, creates flow everywhere he goes. People want to help him because he transmits increase. Deals close more easily because the other party feels they are getting more than they are giving. Negotiations are collaborative because everyone at the table recognizes that the advancing man's success creates the conditions for their success. Opportunities multiply because people think of him first when possibilities arise, and they think of him first because every previous interaction has left them feeling expanded, increased, elevated. But here is what most people miss. You cannot fake being an advancing man. You cannot perform this consciousness while internally doubting your advance. You cannot transmit increase while internally experiencing decrease. The signal must be authentic, must flow from genuine resolution of all internal conflict about your right to expand, must come from a consciousness that has fully embraced its identity as a creative center from which increase radiates naturally. Any attempt to fake this will create signal noise that the subconscious always detects, and the performance will exhaust you while producing minimal results. So how do you become an advancing man? You begin by examining every thought, every word, every action through the filter of a single question. Does this express increase or decrease? When you catch yourself complaining about the economy, you are expressing decrease. When you catch yourself gossiping about someone else's failure, you are expressing decrease. When you catch yourself worrying about whether you can afford something, you are expressing decrease. Every single one of these expressions broadcasts the signal that you are contracting, not expanding, that you are a maintaining man at best and a declining man in truth. The transformation requires ruthless self-honesty. You must catch these expressions of decrease the moment they arise and immediately replace them with expressions of increase. This is not positive thinking. This is not affirmations disconnected from reality. This is the deliberate cultivation of a consciousness that interprets every situation through the lens of opportunity for advancement rather than threat of loss. When business is slow, the maintaining man panics and broadcasts decrease. The advancing man sees an opportunity to refine his offering, to deepen his skills, to prepare for the expansion that is already on its way. Same situation, completely different signal, completely different result. Wattles warns that if you are not an advancing man, you are a shrinking man and the universe will bypass you. This is not punishment. This is not moral judgment. This is mechanical law. The universe is in a constant state of expansion. This is observable, measurable fact. The force that drives the expansion of the cosmos is the same force that drives the expansion of life on this planet, and that force needs vehicles through which to express itself. If you are not advancing, you are not a suitable vehicle, and the universe will route resources to those who are advancing because they can use those resources to generate more expansion, which is the fundamental purpose of existence itself. This is why the advancing man never worries about competition. He understands that there is no competition for something that is infinite. The formless substance can manifest whatever anyone impresses upon it with sufficient clarity and faith. If others are succeeding, that proves the law works, which means it will work for him as well when he applies it correctly. The advancing man is not threatened by others' success. He is encouraged by it, because it confirms that advancement is possible, that the law is operational, that the universe is still in the business of expanding through human vehicles. The declining man, by contrast, sees every other person's success as evidence of his own failure. He believes in scarcity, in zero-sum games, in limited resources that must be fought over. This belief is not just wrong, it is actively destructive because it generates the signal of decrease that repels the very wealth he claims to desire. His consciousness is oriented toward contraction, and contraction is death. Every cell in his body knows this, every person who encounters him feels this, and the universe bypasses him, not because he is unworthy, but because he has made himself unsuitable as a vehicle for the expression of increase. Becoming an advancing man is not about changing your personality. It is not about becoming extroverted if you are introverted, aggressive if you are gentle, bold if you are careful. It is about changing your fundamental relationship to the force of increase that animates all life. It is about recognizing that you are not separate from this force. You are an expression of this force, and when you stop resisting it, when you stop broadcasting decrease, when you fully embrace your identity as a creative center from which increase radiates, everything changes. The same personality, the same skills, the same circumstances suddenly produce completely different results because you have aligned yourself with the fundamental law that governs all wealth. This alignment is what Wattles demands of anyone who would master the science of getting rich. The thought work matters, the action work matters, but neither of them can overcome the signal of decrease. You must become an advancing man, not as a technique but as an identity, not as a performance but as a truth, not as something you do occasionally, but as something you are constantly. When this transformation is complete, when you have fully embodied the consciousness of advancement, wealth becomes inevitable, not because you have manipulated the universe, but because you have removed every obstacle that was preventing the natural flow of increase from moving through you and materializing in your experience as money, opportunity, and expanding possibilities that seemed impossible from your previous state of consciousness. The transmission of the impression of increase occurs not in grand gestures or dramatic declarations, but in the smallest, most overlooked details of daily life. This is where most students of Wattles fail catastrophically. They believe they can think rich thoughts during meditation, and then revert to signals of decrease during the mundane transactions that fill the hours between their conscious practice sessions. They do not understand that every micro-interaction is either strengthening their signal of advancement or contaminating it with decrease, and the subconscious minds of everyone they encounter are reading these signals with perfect accuracy and responding accordingly. Consider the moment you hand money to a street vendor for a newspaper. This transaction lasts perhaps 15 seconds. The conscious mind dismisses it as meaningless, a trivial exchange that could not possibly affect your wealth trajectory. But Wattles understood what modern neuroscience is only now confirming. These micro-interactions are everything. In that 15-second exchange, you are broadcasting a signal that penetrates the vendor's subconscious mind and either leaves an impression of increase or decrease. If you transmit reluctance, if the energy of the transaction conveys that you are parting with money you can barely afford, if your body language suggests resentment at the necessity of this expense, you have just broadcast decrease. The vendor's conscious mind may not register anything unusual. He hands you the paper, takes your money, and the transaction completes exactly as it has completed 10,000 times before. But his subconscious mind has received and processed your signal. Some part of him now associates you with the feeling of decrease, with the energy of contraction, with the sense that interaction with you represents a drain rather than an addition to his life. This association is stored, processed, and will influence any future interaction he has with you, however subtle that influence might be. More importantly, this same pattern is repeating itself in every transaction you complete throughout your day, and the cumulative effect is determining whether you become known in your community as someone who increases life or someone who depletes it. Now consider the same transaction performed by an advancing man. He approaches the vendor with a completely different internal state. He is not reluctantly parting with money. He is grateful for the exchange. He understands that his dollar is flowing into the economy. creating circulation that will eventually return to him multiplied. More importantly, he holds the internal thought, even if it is never vocalized, that this transaction is increasing the vendor's life. He conveys through his energy, through his presence, through the quality of his attention, that he is glad this vendor exists, that this service matters, that this exchange is adding value to both parties. The vendor experiences something entirely different. The transaction still completes in 15 seconds. The same money changes hands for the same product, but the vendor walks away feeling slightly better than he did before the interaction. He cannot articulate why. If you asked him, he would probably say the customer was polite or friendly, but those words do not capture the actual transmission that occurred. What he actually experienced was the impression of increase, the subtle but unmistakable signal that the person he just served is advancing, and that everyone connected to that person's advance will also advance. His subconscious has associated you with expansion, with growth, with the feeling that interaction with you leads to more life, not less. This difference seems trivial in a single transaction, but you are not performing a single transaction. You are performing dozens or hundreds of micro-interactions every single day, and each one is either strengthening your signal of advancement or contaminating it with decrease. After a year of consistently transmitting increase in every small interaction, you have become known, not consciously known, but known at the level where it matters, as someone who increases life. People think of you when opportunities arise. They want to help you because helping you feels good in a way they cannot quite explain. They give you the benefit of the doubt in ambiguous situations because their accumulated impression of you is positive, expansive, growth-oriented. After a year of transmitting decrease in these same small interactions, you have become known as someone who depletes life. People do not think of you when opportunities arise. They help you reluctantly, if at all, because helping you feels like a drain. They interpret ambiguous situations negatively because their accumulated impression of you is negative, contracting, decline-oriented. And you wonder why wealth eludes you, why opportunities go to others, why you seem to work harder than everyone else for fewer results. The answer is in the signal you have been broadcasting in 10,000 micro-interactions you dismissed as meaningless. Wattles is explicit that the impression of increase must be transmitted in every action, no matter how small. When you give a tip, are you transmitting abundance or scarcity? When you pay a bill, are you transmitting gratitude for the service received or resentment at the expense incurred? When you shake someone's hand, are you present and engaged, transmitting the energy that this interaction matters? Or are you already mentally moving to the next thing, transmitting that this person is an interruption in your day? These questions are not philosophical. They are diagnostic. They reveal whether you are becoming an advancing man or remaining a declining man. And the answer to that question determines everything about your financial future. The counterintuitive truth is that the smallest interactions matter most because they are unguarded. In important meetings, during major negotiations, when closing significant deals, your conscious mind is engaged and you are performing at your highest level. But in the small moments, buying coffee, answering a brief email, greeting a receptionist, your guard is down and your true signal broadcasts without interference from conscious management. People sense this authentic signal and they trust it more than they trust any conscious performance, which is why your casual interactions often determine your reputation more powerfully than your carefully managed professional presentations. This is why Wattles insists you must hold the internal thought that you are increasing others, even when that thought is never verbalized. The thought matters because it shapes your energy, and your energy broadcasts through 1,000 micro-expressions that conscious performance cannot fully control. The slight relaxation in your facial muscles when you feel genuine warmth, the imperceptible shift in your vocal tone when you feel authentic gratitude, the fractional change in your posture when you feel real confidence about your trajectory. All of these micro-signals accumulate into a coherent transmission that announces to everyone who encounters you, I am advancing, and by association with me, you are advancing too. But here is what destroys most people's application of this principle. They attempt to transmit increase while internally feeling decrease. They try to perform gratitude while internally resenting the expense. They attempt to broadcast confidence while internally doubting their trajectory. This creates signal noise, a mixed message that the subconscious detects as inauthenticity, and inauthenticity repels wealth more effectively than almost any other quality because it signals that you do not trust your own transmission. If you do not trust it, why should anyone else? The solution is not better performance. The solution is internal alignment. You must resolve at the deepest level of your being that you are an advancing man, that your trajectory is upward, that every exchange you make is increasing both parties, that your advance is inevitable and benefits everyone connected to it. When this resolution is complete, when you have eliminated every trace of internal contradiction, the impression of increase broadcasts automatically in every micro-interaction without any conscious effort to perform it. It becomes as natural as breathing, as automatic as your heartbeat, as inevitable as your pulse. This is the technique Wattles reveals, but it is not a technique in the conventional sense. It is a transformation of consciousness that expresses itself through technique. You do not learn to transmit increase in small interactions. You become someone who cannot help but transmit increase in small interactions because increase has become your fundamental orientation to life itself. When someone gives you change from a purchase, you transmit gratitude, not because you are trying to manipulate them, but because you genuinely appreciate the exchange. When someone provides a service, you transmit respect, not because you are performing a social nicety, but because you genuinely recognize that all honest work is noble and contributes to the expansion of life. The micro-interaction is the training ground where you discover whether you have truly embodied the impression of increase or whether you are merely performing it in high-stakes situations while reverting to decrease when you think no one important is watching. But everyone is important, every interaction matters. The newspaper vendor you dismissed as insignificant is part of a network of consciousness, and his subconscious impression of you will ripple out in ways you cannot predict or control. Perhaps he mentions you to someone who knows someone who has an opportunity that would be perfect for you. But he does not mention you because his accumulated impression of you is neutral at best, vaguely negative at worst. You never know what opportunity you lost because you transmitted decrease in a micro-interaction you considered meaningless. The advancing man knows there are no meaningless interactions. Every moment is an opportunity to strengthen his signal or weaken it, to add evidence of his advancing nature or subtract from it, to become more known as a source of increase or more known as a source of decrease. He treats the newspaper vendor with the same quality of presence he brings to $1 million negotiation, because he understands that the signal must be consistent to be believed, must be authentic to be effective, must be maintained in all circumstances if it is to generate the cumulative effect that eventually makes wealth inevitable. This is not exhausting when properly understood. You are not trying to be on all the time. You are simply being what you are, an advancing man, and allowing that identity to express itself naturally in every situation. The exhaustion comes from trying to perform increase while internally experiencing decrease, from maintaining a false front that requires constant energy to sustain. When the transformation is real, when you have truly become an advancing man at the level of identity rather than technique, the transmission happens effortlessly because you are not creating something false. You are simply allowing something true to express itself without the interference of false conditioning that taught you to apologize for your advance. Now we must address the confusion that destroys more wealth-building attempts than any other misunderstanding. The difference between the impression of increase and boasting. Most people, when they first encounter Wattles' teaching about transmitting increase, immediately leap to the conclusion that they should tell everyone about their success, broadcast their achievements, ensure that everyone knows they are advancing. This is not just wrong, it is the exact opposite of what Wattles teaches, and it generates the signal of decrease more powerfully than almost any other behavior, because boasting is always, without exception, a sign of internal fear and smallness dressed up as confidence. Consider what boasting actually reveals about the boaster's internal state. A truly confident person, someone who is genuinely advancing and knows with absolute certainty that their trajectory is upward, has no need to convince others of this fact. Their advance is self-evident in 1,000 subtle ways that do not require verbal declaration. But the boaster is attempting to convince others precisely because he has not convinced himself. The boasting is an attempt to create externally the certainty he lacks internally, to force others to validate what he cannot validate for himself. Every person who hears the boasting detects this desperation at a subconscious level, and they respond not with the admiration the boaster craves, but with a vague sense of discomfort that they translate as distrust. Wattles understood that true power is silent. The impression of increase is a vibration, not a declaration. It is a quality of being that others sense without needing to be told. When you encounter someone who is genuinely advancing, you do not need them to announce it. You feel it in their presence, in their certainty, in the quality of their attention, in the way they move through the world with the confidence of someone who knows exactly where they are going and has no doubt about their arrival. This quiet certainty is magnetic because it is authentic, and authenticity is the only currency that matters in the realm of signal transmission, because the subconscious cannot be fooled by performance no matter how skillful. The fatal error is believing that you need to tell people you are advancing. You do not. In fact, the moment you feel the need to tell people you are advancing, you have revealed that you doubt your advance, and that doubt broadcasts more powerfully than any words you use to disguise it. The truly advancing person has no need to announce their status because their status is obvious to everyone who encounters them. They transmit increase not through boasting, but through the quality of their being, through the certainty in their actions, through the way they add value to every interaction without drawing attention to the addition. Consider the difference in how two men might handle success. The boaster achieves a victory and immediately broadcasts it to everyone in his network. He posts about it on social media. He brings it up in casual conversation. He finds ways to insert it into every discussion, ensuring that no one could possibly miss the fact that he has achieved something. What signal does this transmit? It transmits that this victory is unusual for him, that he is surprised by his own success, that he needs external validation to believe in his achievement. People sense this need, and they respond with the polite but hollow congratulations that feel more like obligation than genuine celebration. The advancing man handles the same victory completely differently. He feels the satisfaction of achievement, yes, but he does not need to broadcast it because this victory is simply confirmation of what he already knew, that he is advancing and that victories are the natural consequence of his advancing nature. If others learn of his success, they learn of it through third parties or through the natural course of conversation, never through his deliberate attempt to ensure everyone knows. More importantly, when they do learn of it, they sense something entirely different. They sense that this is not an unusual event, but a natural expression of someone who advances consistently, and this impression is infinitely more powerful than any boasting could ever be. The distinction is subtle but crucial. Boasting says, "Look at what I achieved, which proves I am significant." The impression of increase says without words, "I am advancing, and this achievement is simply one expression among many of my advancing nature." The first is desperate, the second is certain, the first repels, the second attracts. The first signals fear disguised as confidence. The second signals genuine confidence that requires no disguise because it is not performing for anyone's benefit. It is simply being what it is. This is why Wattles emphasizes that the signal is a quiet, absolute faith. It is not loud. It is not insistent. It is not concerned with whether others recognize it, because recognition is inevitable when the signal is authentic. The person who has truly internalized the law of increase does not worry about whether people see their advance. They know that their advance is visible in ways that matter, that people sense it even if they cannot articulate it, that opportunities will come because the signal attracts opportunities the way a lighthouse attracts ships in darkness. The practical application is liberating. You can stop performing. You can stop trying to convince others of your worth, your progress, your trajectory. You can stop the exhausting project of managing your reputation through careful curation of what others see and know about you. Instead, you can simply focus on being an advancing man, and the reputation will take care of itself, because reputation is nothing more than the accumulated signal you have been broadcasting. And if that signal is authentic increase, the reputation will be positive without any conscious management required. But here is where most people stumble. They confuse silence about their achievements with false modesty. False modesty is just another form of performance, another way of seeking validation by pretending not to seek it. The advancing man is not falsely modest. If someone asks him about his achievements, he speaks factually, without embellishment or self-deprecation. He does not minimize his success to appear humble, nor does he exaggerate it to appear impressive. He simply states what is, because he has no emotional charge around the topic. His achievements are facts, not proof of his worth, and facts can be stated without the distortion that emotional need always creates. This emotional neutrality about achievements is the hallmark of genuine advancement. The boaster is emotionally dependent on his achievements because his sense of worth is tied to them. The falsely modest person is equally dependent, using the performance of modesty to avoid the vulnerability of being seen accurately. The advancing man is dependent on neither because his sense of identity is not derived from his achievements. It is derived from his fundamental orientation toward increase, toward expansion, toward advancement. The achievements are consequences of this orientation, not sources of validation for it. When you operate from this place of emotional neutrality, something remarkable happens. People trust you more. They sense that you are not trying to manipulate their perception, not performing for their approval, not dependent on their validation. This trust creates openness, and openness creates opportunity, because people offer opportunities to those they trust, not to those they suspect are performing. The boaster never earns this trust, because the performance is always slightly visible, always slightly off, always triggering the subconscious alarm that warns, this person is not what they are pretending to be. The impression of increase, by contrast, earns trust automatically, because it is not a pretense. It is an authentic expression of someone who has aligned themselves with the law of increase and is allowing that alignment to express itself naturally in every situation. There is nothing to detect, nothing to distrust, nothing that triggers the alarm, because what you see is what you get. Someone who is advancing and who increases everyone they touch, not through manipulation or technique, but through the natural consequence of their fundamental orientation to life. This is what Wattles means when he says, boasting is a sign of fear and smallness. Fear, because the boaster is afraid you will not see his value unless he points it out. Smallness, because someone who is genuinely large, who is genuinely advancing, who is genuinely certain of their trajectory, has no need to make themselves appear larger through verbal inflation. The silent vibration of absolute faith is infinitely more powerful than any words could be, because words can lie but vibration cannot, and the subconscious reads vibration with perfect accuracy while treating words with appropriate skepticism. The transformation from boaster to advancing man requires a shift in where you derive your sense of worth. If your worth comes from achievements, you will always need to broadcast those achievements to feel secure in your worth. If your worth comes from your fundamental identity as an expression of the life force itself, as a creative center from which increase radiates naturally, then achievements become simply interesting data points that confirm what you already know. The need to broadcast them evaporates because you are not looking for external validation of something you have already validated internally with absolute certainty. This internal validation is what creates the quiet certainty that Wattles identifies as the true signal of increase. It is quiet because it does not need to be loud. It is certain because it is not based on external proof, but on internal knowing. It is attractive because human beings are drawn to certainty the way plants are drawn to sunlight. It represents stability, reliability, the promise of solid ground in a world that seems increasingly uncertain. When you transmit this quiet certainty, people want to attach themselves to your trajectory, because every biological instinct tells them that staying close to certainty is safer than staying close to doubt, that backing someone who knows where they are going is smarter than backing someone who is performing confidence they do not feel. The final irony is that when you stop trying to convince others that you're advancing, When you stop boasting and performing and managing perceptions, people become more convinced of your advance than they ever were when you were trying to convince them. The effort to convince always undermines the message because effort implies doubt. The absence of effort, the simple transmission of quiet certainty, implies a level of confidence so deep that it does not occur to you that anyone might doubt it. This is the level at which the impression of increase operates most powerfully, not as a technique you apply, but as a truth you embody so completely that it expresses itself without your conscious participation in every micro-expression, every interaction, every moment of contact with another human consciousness. We now arrive at the practical discipline that separates those who merely understand Wattles' teaching from those who actually manifest wealth through its application. The immediate and absolute elimination of every signal of decrease from your consciousness and communication. This is not a suggestion. This is not advice that might be helpful if you feel like following it. This is the non-negotiable requirement for anyone who would master the science of getting rich, because you cannot simultaneously broadcast increase and decrease and expect the universe to deliver wealth. The mixed signal creates confusion in the formless substance and paralysis in the people who could facilitate your advance. Consider what happens every time you complain about the economy. You believe you are making an observation, stating a fact about external conditions that exist independent of your opinion. But Wattles reveals that there is no such thing as a neutral observation when it comes to the signal you broadcast. When you complain about the economy, you are not describing reality. You are creating reality by impressing upon the thinking stuff the pattern of economic limitation, and more immediately, you are broadcasting to everyone who hears your complaint that you are experiencing decrease, that you are affected by external conditions, that you are not an advancing man because advancing men advance regardless of external conditions. The person who hears your economic complaint does not consciously think, "This person is experiencing decrease and I should avoid doing business with them." The conscious mind might even agree with your complaint, might join in with complaints of their own. But the subconscious is processing something entirely different. It is noting that you have just signaled vulnerability, that you have revealed yourself to be subject to forces you cannot control, that you are not the kind of person who creates their own reality through the force of their advancing consciousness. This information is stored, processed, and will influence every future interaction that person has with you, usually in ways that work against your wealth-building objectives. Now multiply this single complaint by the hundreds or thousands of similar signals most people transmit in a year. Complaints about politics, about the weather, about traffic, about technology, about other people, about their own circumstances. Each complaint is a signal of decrease. Each complaint broadcasts to everyone within range that you are a person who experiences life as something that happens to you rather than something you create through the force of your consciousness, directed according to law. The cumulative effect is devastating because you are training everyone in your network to associate you with decrease, with problems, with difficulty, with the energy of contraction rather than expansion. The elimination of complaint is therefore not about positive thinking or pretending problems do not exist. It is about recognizing that every word you speak is either strengthening your signal of advancement or contaminating it with decrease, and complaint always, without exception, contaminates. The advancing man does not complain about conditions because he understands that conditions are irrelevant to his advance. If the economy is difficult, he sees opportunity to demonstrate his advancing nature by succeeding where others fail. If obstacles appear, he sees opportunities to prove that his advance is not dependent on favorable circumstances, but flows from his fundamental alignment with the law of increase. But complaint is only the most obvious form of decrease signal. Gossip is equally destructive, perhaps more so because it is often disguised as social bonding or information sharing. When you gossip about someone else's failure, when you take subtle pleasure in another person's difficulty, when you participate in the communal judgment of someone who has fallen, you are broadcasting decrease more powerfully than almost any other behavior. Why? Because you are revealing that your consciousness is oriented toward failure rather than success, toward decline rather than advancement, toward the negative rather than the positive. People sense this orientation, and they pull away from you because every biological instinct warns them that association with someone oriented toward decrease is dangerous. The person who gossips about others' failures is always, without exception, defending against their own fear of failure. They are attempting to create safety through comparison. I may not be successful, but at least I am not as bad off as that person. This defensive posture is the opposite of the advancing man's consciousness, which never needs to compare because it is oriented entirely toward its own expansion without reference to anyone else's position. The advancing man is not threatened by others' success and is not comforted by others' failure because his advance is independent of anyone else's circumstances. He is competing with no one, comparing himself to no one, concerned only with the question of whether he is advancing from where he was yesterday. Worry is perhaps the most insidious form of decrease because it operates silently, broadcasting its signal without words. When you worry about a bill, you are not solving the problem. You are impressing upon the thinking stuff the pattern of financial limitation, and you are generating the internal state of contraction that broadcasts decrease to everyone who encounters you. The worried person carries tension in their body, speaks with subtle hesitation, makes decisions from fear rather than possibility. All of these micro-signals accumulate into a clear transmission. I am experiencing decrease. I am managing decline. I am not an advancing man. The elimination of worry is not accomplished through denial of problems. Problems exist. Bills are real. Challenges are genuine. But worry is not a response to these realities. It is a choice about how to hold these realities in consciousness. The advancing man acknowledges the bill, makes a plan to pay it, takes the next action available to him, and then releases all worry because worry serves no function except to broadcast decrease and block the channels through which solution could come. He trusts the law. He knows that his alignment with increase will generate the resources needed to meet all obligations as long as he maintains his signal without contamination from worry. This elimination of decrease signals must be immediate and absolute. You cannot eliminate some complaints, but keep others. You cannot stop gossiping about most people, but continue with a few selected targets. You cannot reduce worry, but allow it in certain areas you deem justified. The signal must be pure to be effective. Any contamination, no matter how small, creates signal noise that reduces the power of your transmission and slows the flow of wealth that is attempting to reach you through the channels you have been opening with your conscious practice. The practical discipline is simple but demanding. You must become aware of every word you speak and every thought you hold, and you must immediately correct any signal of decrease the moment it arises. This is not thought police. This is not suppression. This is redirection. When you catch yourself about to complain, you redirect to either silence or to a statement that frames the situation as an opportunity for advancement. When you catch yourself beginning to gossip, you redirect to either silence or to a statement that acknowledges others' challenges without judgment. When you catch yourself worrying, you redirect to action or to trust in the law that governs all manifestation. This discipline becomes easier with practice, until eventually it becomes automatic. You will reach a point where complaints, gossip, and worry simply do not arise in your consciousness because you have trained yourself to interpret every situation through the lens of opportunity for increase rather than threat of decrease. This is not delusion. This is not denying reality. This is recognizing that reality is plastic, that conditions are temporary, that your advance is determined not by circumstances, but by your signal, and that signal must be protected with absolute vigilance against any contamination from decrease. The transformation in your external circumstances when you achieve this internal discipline is often dramatic. People begin responding to you differently, though they cannot articulate why. Opportunities appear that were always there but invisible to you when you were broadcasting decrease. Problems resolve with unexpected ease because you are no longer generating resistance through worry. Money flows more freely because you have eliminated the primary blocks that were preventing its flow. The signals of decrease that told the universe and every person in it that you were experiencing contraction rather than expansion. But the discipline must be maintained. One day of pure increase signal followed by a day of complaint and worry does not average out to neutral. The decrease signal contaminates the increase signal, creating confusion about what you actually are. The law requires consistency. The formless substance responds most powerfully to sustained, uncontaminated signals held over time. People trust most completely those whose signal never wavers, who transmit increase in all circumstances, who remain unshaken by temporary setbacks because their fundamental orientation is toward advancement regardless of appearances. This is why Wattles tells you to stop signaling decrease immediately, not gradually, not when circumstances improve, not when you feel more confident, immediately, now, this moment. Because every moment you continue broadcasting, decrease is a moment you are training the universe and everyone in it to associate you with contraction, and this association must be reversed before wealth can flow freely to you. The reversal begins with a single decision. I will not broadcast decrease again, regardless of circumstances, regardless of how I feel, regardless of what appears to be true in this moment. I am an advancing man, and advancing men do not broadcast decrease because it contradicts their fundamental nature. Now we arrive at what Wattles calls the secret that unlocks the entire system, the understanding that transforms his teaching from interesting philosophy into mechanical law that operates with the same reliability as gravity. When you become a person of increase, the formless substance itself will move heaven and earth to promote you. This is not metaphor. This is not inspirational language. This is a description of how the universe actually operates when you align yourself properly with its fundamental nature. The cosmos is expanding. This is measurable fact. The force driving that expansion needs vehicles through which to express itself, and it will always, without exception, route resources to those vehicles that can use those resources to generate more expansion. Think of yourself as a channel through which the life force flows. If you are a blocked channel, if you signal decrease, if you orient toward contraction, the life force cannot use you effectively. It will route around you the way water routes around a stone in a stream. The water does not hate the stone. The water does not judge the stone. The water simply follows the path of least resistance, and a consciousness broadcasting decrease is resistance. But when you become an open channel, when you signal increase, when you orient toward expansion, you become the path of least resistance for the life force to express itself, and it will pour through you with a force that often seems miraculous to those who do not understand the mechanics. This is why the universe wants to promote you. Not because you are special, not because you are more deserving than others, but because you have made yourself useful to the fundamental purpose of existence, which is expansion. You are not taking from others when wealth flows to you. You are serving the cosmic purpose. The resources that come to you are not being denied to someone else. They are coming to you so that you can multiply them, so that you can generate even more expansion, so that the universe can express more of itself through your increasing capacity to handle and deploy resources. Most people cannot grasp this because they believe in scarcity. They believe that if someone wins, someone else must lose. They believe that wealth is a fixed pie that must be fought over. But Wattles understood what quantum physics would later confirm. There is no fixed anything. There is only the formless substance, capable of manifesting anything impressed upon it with sufficient clarity and faith. When you succeed, you do not diminish anyone else's potential. You prove that success is possible, which makes success easier for everyone else by providing a template that others can follow. The universe promotes you by arranging synchronicities that seem impossible to predict or control. The right person appears at the right time with the right opportunity. The obstacle that seemed insurmountable suddenly resolves through an unexpected channel. The resource you needed materializes just as you are ready to use it. These are not coincidences. These are the natural consequence of the formless substance responding to your sustained signal of increase by opening every possible channel through which your advance can manifest. But here is what most people miss. The universe can only promote you to the extent that your signal is pure and sustained. If you broadcast increase on Monday and decrease on Tuesday, you create confusion in the formless substance. It responds to your dominant signal. But when that signal is mixed, when it shifts from day to day depending on your mood or circumstances, The response is sluggish and inconsistent. This is why most people experience occasional wins, but never sustained wealth. Their signal is inconsistent, which generates inconsistent results. The consistency requirement is absolute. The Advancing Man broadcasts increase not just when things are going well, but especially when things appear to be going poorly. In fact, the difficult moments are the most important moments for maintaining your signal, because they reveal whether your faith in the law is genuine or conditional. If you only transmit increase when circumstances confirm your advance, you are still dependent on external validation rather than internal certainty. But if you can maintain your signal of increase, even when circumstances suggest decrease, you prove to the universe and to yourself that your advance is not dependent on conditions, which is precisely when the universe routes maximum resources to you, because you have demonstrated that you can be trusted with those resources, regardless of circumstances. This trust is earned through consistency under pressure. The universe tests you not to punish you, but to verify that you are a stable vehicle for the expansion it wants to express through you. If you collapse at the first sign of difficulty, if you revert to signals of decrease when challenged, you reveal that you are not yet ready to handle the level of resources required for significant expansion. The universe will still support you, but at a level proportional to the stability of your signal. As your signal becomes more stable, as you prove through consistent transmission of increase that you will not waver regardless of circumstances, the level of support increases proportionally. This is what Wattles means when he says, "The universe needs you to have more resources so it can express more life through you." You are not the end point. You are the channel. The resources are not for hoarding. They are for deploying in service of further expansion. The millionaire who stops expanding, who focuses on preservation rather than growth, begins to experience decline because they have stopped serving the universe's fundamental purpose. The billionaire who continues expanding, who keeps taking resources and multiplying them, who keeps creating more value and serving more people, continues to have resources routed to them because they remain useful to the cosmic imperative toward expansion. This removes all guilt from wealth building. You are not being selfish when you accumulate resources. You are being responsible to the life force that flows through you. You are accepting your role as a creative center from which increase radiates. The more resources you accumulate and deploy properly, the more expansion you generate, the more people you serve, the more value you create. This is not rationalization. This is recognition of how the system actually works when you stop fighting it and start flowing with it. The person who feels guilty about wanting wealth, who believes that accumulating resources is somehow wrong or selfish, creates massive internal conflict that broadcasts as signal confusion. They want wealth and reject wealth simultaneously, which creates a mixed signal that the universe cannot respond to effectively. They sabotage their own success through this unresolved conflict, often unconsciously creating circumstances that prevent wealth from accumulating even when they are doing all the right external actions. The guilt itself is the block, because guilt transmits decrease, the signal that having more would be wrong, which directly contradicts the universe's fundamental drive toward expansion. The resolution is to understand that you are not taking from anyone. You are serving the expansion of life itself. Every dollar you earn represents value you have added to someone's life. Every resource you accumulate is potential for even greater service, even more expansion, even more increase for everyone you touch. When you grasp this, the guilt dissolves and the signal becomes pure. You want wealth not because you are greedy, but because you recognize that wealth is the tool through which you can express more of your potential, serve more people, create more value, generate more increase in a world that desperately needs more people oriented toward increase rather than decrease. This is the universal promotion Wattles promises. When you become a person of increase, when your signal is pure and sustained, when you have removed all guilt and all internal contradiction about your right to expand, the universe promotes you automatically because you have made yourself the kind of vehicle it needs to accomplish its fundamental purpose. The promotion is not favor. It is function. You are being promoted because you are useful, because you have aligned yourself with the force that drives all of reality, because resources in your hands will multiply while resources in the hands of someone broadcasting decrease will stagnate or decline. The practical implication is profound. Your primary job is not to figure out how to make money. Your primary job is to become the kind of person the universe wants to promote. When you accomplish this internal transformation, when you become an authentic, advancing man transmitting pure increase in all circumstances, the external question of how to make money becomes almost trivial because opportunities present themselves, resources materialize, synchronicities multiply, and the path forward becomes obvious where before it was obscured. The universe is not withholding opportunities from you. You are simply broadcasting the wrong signal, and opportunities only appear to those broadcasting the signal of increase because those are the people who can use opportunities to generate more expansion rather than squandering them through the consciousness of decrease. We have journeyed through the mechanism, dissected the law, examined the signal, and explored the discipline required to become an advancing man. Now we arrive at the synthesis, the integration of all these elements into a single coherent understanding that will transform your relationship with wealth permanently if you allow it to penetrate beyond intellectual comprehension into the core of your being. The entire system, Wattles reveals, can be distilled into a single principle so elegant, so simple, so powerful that it contains everything you need to generate wealth. Give the impression of increase, and you will receive the currency of the world. This is not philosophy. This is physics. This is the description of an exchange of energy that governs every financial transaction, every business relationship, every investment decision, every movement of money from one person to another. Money flows toward those who signal increase and away from those who signal decrease with the same mechanical reliability that water flows downhill. The person who has mastered the impression of increase has mastered the fundamental law that controls all wealth, and no force in the universe can prevent that person's advance except their own decision to abandon the signal and revert to decrease. Consider what this means for your daily life, for every interaction you have, for every decision you make. You wake up in the morning, and the first question is not, "What do I need to do today?" but, "How will I transmit increase today?" You approach every task not as obligation but as opportunity to demonstrate your advancing nature. You enter every conversation not to extract value but to add value, knowing with absolute certainty that the value you add will return to you multiplied because that is how the law works. You handle every transaction, no matter how small, as an opportunity to transmit the signal that you are advancing, and that everyone connected to your advance will benefit from the expansion you generate. This orientation transforms everything. The same activities that felt like drudgery when approached from the consciousness of obligation become energizing when approached from the consciousness of increase. The same people who seemed like obstacles when you were trying to extract value from them become allies when you are focused on adding value to them. The same circumstances that appeared limiting when you were broadcasting decrease become launching pads when you are broadcasting increase because the advancing man sees opportunity where the declining man sees only obstacle. The synthesis is complete when you recognize that there is no separation between your internal state and your external results. Your consciousness creates your circumstances with perfect precision. The signal you broadcast determines the wealth you experience with mechanical reliability. Every financial outcome you have ever experienced is the direct result of the signal you have been broadcasting, and every financial outcome you will ever experience will be the direct result of the signal you broadcast from this point forward. This is not blame, this is power. If your results are determined by your signal, then changing your signal changes your results, and your signal is entirely within your control. The master Wallace Wattles understood something that most teachers of wealth miss entirely, that wealth is not an achievement but a transmission. Not something you create through strategy and technique, but something you allow through alignment and signal. He spent his life studying the mechanics of manifestation, and he distilled everything he learned into a single teaching so powerful that anyone who truly grasps it and applies it completely cannot fail to generate wealth. That teaching is the law of increase, and its application is the impression of increase, and the result of consistent application is inevitable advance regardless of starting conditions, regardless of obstacles, regardless of any external factor that those broadcasting decrease use as an excuse for their failure. You stand now at a threshold. Behind you is the consciousness you have been operating from, perhaps successful by some standards, but always working harder than necessary, always meeting more resistance than seems fair, always wondering why wealth flows more easily to others than to you. Ahead of you is the consciousness of the advancing man, someone who transmits increase in all circumstances, who serves as a creative center from which expansion radiates, who has aligned themselves so completely with the fundamental force of reality that wealth flows to them as naturally as water flows to the lowest point in a landscape. The choice to cross this threshold is yours alone. No one can make it for you. No one can force you to become an advancing man. You can study this teaching for years and never apply it, can understand the mechanism intellectually while remaining paralyzed in the consciousness of decrease, can know exactly what to do while continuing to do the opposite. This is the tragedy of potential unrealized, not that you lack the capacity, but that you refuse to exercise it, not that the law does not work, but that you will not work the law. But if you choose to cross the threshold, if you decide in this moment that you will become an advancing man and never again broadcast decrease regardless of circumstances, everything changes. The change begins internally as you recognize and eliminate every thought, every word, every action that signals decrease. You become vigilant about your signal, correcting it the instant it wavers, maintaining the transmission of increase with the same consistency you maintain your heartbeat. This vigilance is not exhausting. It becomes automatic as you realize that broadcasting increase feels better than broadcasting decrease, that transmitting expansion is more natural than transmitting contraction, that you were designed for advancement and every moment spent in any other orientation is a violation of your essential nature. As the internal change solidifies, the external change begins to manifest. People respond to you differently, though they cannot explain why. Opportunities appear that were always there, but invisible to your previous consciousness. Money flows more freely because you have eliminated the primary obstacle that was blocking its flow, the signal of decrease that told everyone who encountered you that association with you meant contraction rather than expansion. Synchronicities multiply because the formless substance is now responding to a clear, sustained signal rather than the mixed messages you were sending before. The advance accelerates. What once seemed difficult becomes easy. What once required enormous effort now flows naturally. What once felt like struggle now feels like play. Not because you have learned some trick or discovered some secret that others lack, but because you have aligned yourself with the fundamental law that governs all wealth. You have become what you were always meant to be, a creative center from which increase radiates, a vehicle through which the universe can express its fundamental drive toward expansion, an advancing man who transmits increase in all circumstances and therefore attracts wealth with the mechanical reliability of gravity, pulling objects toward Earth. This is not the end of challenge. This is not the arrival at some permanent state where difficulty never arises. Obstacles will still appear. Setbacks will still occur. Circumstances will still shift in unexpected ways, but your relationship to these challenges is completely transformed because you no longer interpret them as evidence of decrease. You see them as opportunities to demonstrate your advancing nature, to prove that your signal does not waver regardless of circumstances, to show the universe that you are a stable vehicle worthy of receiving even greater resources because you will not collapse under pressure, but will instead transmit increase more powerfully in difficult times than in easy times. This is the message of empowerment that Wattles offers. You are not victim to circumstances. You are not at the mercy of the economy, the market, your background, your education, your current resources. You are a consciousness capable of impressing itself upon the formless substance and generating any outcome you can hold with clarity and faith. The only question is what you choose to impress upon that substance: increase or decrease, expansion or contraction, advancement or decline. Choose increase. Maintain that choice with absolute consistency, and wealth becomes inevitable because you have aligned yourself with the force that drives all of reality toward expansion. The teaching is complete. The law has been revealed. The method has been explained. You now possess knowledge that most people will never encounter, and among those who encounter it, most will never apply it. You stand in the rare position of someone who has been given the keys to wealth generation according to law rather than luck, according to consciousness rather than circumstance. What you do with this knowledge determines everything about your financial future. Apply it completely and wealth becomes inevitable. Apply it partially, and you will get partial results. Apply it not at all, and nothing changes except that you can no longer claim ignorance as an excuse for your financial struggles. The challenge Wattles issues is simple but demanding. Become an advancing man starting now in this moment, with the very next thought you think and the very next action you take. Not tomorrow, not when conditions improve, not when you feel more confident or more prepared. Now, because every moment you delay is a moment you continue broadcasting the old signal, the signal of decrease that has been limiting your wealth up to this point. The transformation requires a clean break with the past, a definitive decision that you will no longer tolerate the consciousness of decrease in any form, a commitment to maintain the impression of increase in all circumstances, regardless of how difficult that maintenance might feel in the beginning. This commitment must be absolute. You cannot maintain the signal most of the time, but allow lapses when you are tired or stressed or facing genuine difficulty. The law does not make exceptions for difficulty. In fact, the difficult moments are when the signal matters most, because they reveal whether your faith in the law is genuine or conditional. The advancing man transmits increase, especially in difficult circumstances, because he understands that his advance is not dependent on favorable conditions, but flows from his fundamental alignment with the force of increase itself. He knows that the universe is testing his consistency, verifying that he can be trusted with greater resources, confirming that he will not collapse at the first sign of challenge. The practical test of whether you have truly grasped this teaching is simple. Observe your signal. For the next 24 hours, notice every word you speak, every thought you think, every action you take. Is it expressing increase or decrease? Is it strengthening your signal of advancement or contaminating it with contraction? Is it serving your transformation into an advancing man or reinforcing your old identity as someone who struggles with money? This observation will reveal where you stand, will show you how much work remains, will demonstrate whether you are ready to cross the threshold or whether you are still clinging to the old consciousness while pretending to embrace the new. For most people, this observation is shocking. They discover that despite their conscious intention to transmit increase, they are broadcasting decrease in countless small ways throughout every day. A complaint about traffic, a moment of worry about a bill, a critical thought about someone else's success, a hesitation when stating their price, a defensive response when someone challenges their ideas. Each of these moments is a signal of decrease, and they accumulate into a coherent transmission that explains why wealth has been elusive despite their best efforts to succeed. But the observation also reveals the path forward. Once you see how pervasive decrease signals are in your current consciousness, you can begin the systematic elimination of them. One by one, you catch them and correct them. You notice the impulse to complain and redirect to either silence or a statement that frames the situation as opportunity. You catch the beginning of worry and redirect to action or trust. You feel the pull toward gossip and redirect to either saying nothing or acknowledging others' challenges without judgment. This correction process is the transformation in action, the actual work of becoming an advancing man rather than simply understanding the concept intellectually. The final call to action is this: declare your new status. Write in the comments below these 4 words that contain your entire financial future. I am an advancing man. This declaration is not empty ritual. This is the act of claiming your identity, of announcing to the universe and to yourself that you have crossed the threshold, that you are no longer operating from the consciousness of decrease, that you have aligned yourself with the law of increase and committed to maintaining that alignment regardless of circumstances. The words themselves matter less than what they represent. Your decision to stop being a victim of circumstances and become a creator of circumstances, to stop broadcasting decrease and start transmitting increase. To stop hoping wealth will somehow find you and start becoming the kind of person to whom wealth flows naturally and inevitably. This declaration creates accountability. Once you have publicly claimed the identity of an advancing man, every action you take either confirms or contradicts that claim. You can no longer hide behind excuses, can no longer blame circumstances, can no longer pretend that your financial struggles are the result of anything other than your signal. You have declared yourself an advancing man, and advancing men do not struggle with money because they transmit the one signal that makes money flow toward them as reliably as gravity pulls objects toward Earth. If money is not flowing, the problem is not the economy or your background or your circumstances. The problem is that you are not yet transmitting the signal you have claimed to transmit. The transformation is not instant, but it is inevitable if you maintain the commitment. Day by day, interaction by interaction, decision by decision, you strengthen your signal. The old patterns of decrease become less frequent as the new patterns of increase become more automatic. The people in your life begin responding to you differently because they detect the change in your transmission, even if they cannot articulate what has changed. Opportunities that were always present but invisible to your old consciousness become obvious to your new consciousness. Money that was blocked by your signal of decrease begins flowing as you establish the consistent transmission of increase. Within weeks, you notice differences. Within months, the changes are undeniable. Within a year, you look back at your old self and barely recognize the person who struggled with money, who worried about bills, who felt like wealth was always just out of reach. That person was broadcasting decrease. You are now broadcasting increase. That person was a declining man pretending to pursue wealth. You are now an advancing man who attracts wealth naturally through the force of your signal. The external circumstances may take time to fully reflect this internal transformation, but the direction is set, the trajectory is established, and nothing can prevent your advance except your own decision to abandon the signal and revert to the consciousness of decrease. Turn on the signal. Let it broadcast from you constantly, consistently, without wavering. Let everyone who meets you feel that they are better off for having known you, that their life has expanded through contact with yours, that you are a source of increase rather than decrease. This is not manipulation, this is not performance. This is the authentic expression of someone who has aligned themselves with the fundamental force of reality and is allowing that force to express itself through their being without resistance or distortion. Declare your new status now. Write the words, "I am an advancing man." Let the signal begin, and let nothing in this world or any other prevent you from maintaining that signal until wealth becomes as natural to you as breathing, as inevitable as sunrise, as undeniable as gravity. The law has been revealed, the choice is yours, the time is now.